So growing up, my parents didn't have a lot of money. They didn't want my brother and sister and I to lack, and so they just did everything they could, worked however hard they needed to provide for us. And we lived in a nice home, which was something they bought cheap and fixed up, and we had nice stuff, which usually came from garage sales, but we didn't care. And I had this dream that one day I was going to be a gymnast. Okay, I was like Olympic gymnast, okay? I wasn't really good, but that was my dream, okay? It was my passion. And my mom didn't want me to miss out on that. The problem was that she couldn't afford the gymnastics lessons. So what she did was she went to the gymnastics teacher and she made a deal where I could take lessons for free. In exchange, she would go after every class and clean the building for her. Like, that's love, right? That's selfless love. And she didn't even tell me. I didn't even know that she did that until I was an adult. And it brought tears to my eyes because that is a giving and sacrificial and selfless kind of love. And that is the love God has for us, only on a much bigger scale. The Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians in chapter 2, verse 7, he showed us how Jesus made himself nothing by taking on the nature of a servant. And Jesus himself tells us in Mark chapter 10 that he did not come to be served, but to serve. Well, serving requires a lot of work, right? Jesus fed crowds of people. He washed feet. He cared for the sick. He trained those who followed him. He gave encouragement, and he showed people how loved they were. Jesus made himself nothing. He didn't care about his status. He put the needs of others above his own. He gave sacrificially even when no one appreciated or acknowledged him. He gave up his life for another. Does this not sound a tiny bit like a mom, right? Moms are the perfect earthly picture of selflessness. I know so many moms that work multiple jobs. They've given up their own desires and careers. They sacrifice on a daily basis. Whatever they need to do for their kids, they'll do, usually without appreciation or acknowledgement. They love their children simply because they are their children. They will feed them and care for them and train them and give them encouragement and show them love, and they're willing to make themselves nothing and willing to give up their own lives. There was a mother in the Bible like this. She loved her son so much she was willing to risk her life to save him. When the Pharaoh of Egypt decided that there were too many Israelites and demanded that all the baby boys be killed, she refused. She hid her son for 3 months and then devised a plan where the Pharaoh's own daughter would find him and raise him. This woman was not only willing to risk her life for her son, she was willing to give her son to another woman just so that he had a chance at life. If you've ever been in her shoes, I want you to know that God saw your sacrifice and that he honors you for that choice. This woman in the Bible, she was willing to sacrifice her own emotions and her own desires, and we don't even find out her name in that story. It's not until later in the Bible that we even hear her name. In his letter to the Philippians, Paul not only told us that Jesus made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, but he says that we are to have that same mindset. As a mom, how many times have you eaten a cold dinner? How many times have you gone to bed late because you had to stay up and help your child with a project? Right? How many times have you skipped buying something you want because your child needed something? God sees you. He recognizes your selflessness. But I pray that you see him and that you too recognize that he is the perfect picture of selfless.